One of the most annoying issues with Game Boy refurbishment, for me at least, is corrosion. So a lot of the time, corrosion is just the end of the Game Boy. I mean, yeah, you can save some parts from it, especially if it hits like your button pads like this. I mean, this really isn't that bad, all things considered, but that kind of thing is always super annoying because if you can't fix it with something like a fiberglass pen and the button presses just don't work or don't work well enough, it's usually kind of the end of the line. But shout out to Natalie the Nerd for making these gorgeous things. I bought a bunch of them, thankfully, before the tariffs, and we can take this little flex PCB, put it over the top, solder it to the test pads, and boom, our button presses will be good. Our button pads will be clean once again because this has already been cleaned. There was corrosion on here. I tried scraping it off. It's gone through the ultrasonic cleaner, and it is just bad. It is dunzo. All those brown spots not going anywhere. So this will solve all of our issues, and it's super easy to install. So let's do that. I'm actually going to leave this off to the side for a second. I'm going to turn my soldering iron on to 300 degrees Celsius. I'm going to get my solder out in my flux. And while my iron is heating up, I'm going to put some flux down over here, some flux down on TP2 and TP3. Now, you might be wondering, why can't we just add solder to these pads to make them fresh again? Because as you're going to see here, we can load this square up with solder and it goes over all of those brown spots like they don't even exist. Well, the solder is going to oxidize very fast, much faster than any of the gold pads. So yes, it will work for a bit, but doing that's like a Band-Aid fix. And we want to put gold back in that spot. So this will work for another 20 years or so. Because with the solder, I mean, I don't know for sure, but it might only last like a year, if that. Because again, the solder will oxidize very fast. No matter how good of a soldering job you do, this is just what happens. Usually you need to reflow solder before you need to replace the gold pads. So that's why we're doing it this way. And this square is going to act as our ground. TP2 is going to be for our select, and TP3 is going to work for our start. Hopefully in your case, the corrosion hasn't completely eaten away the TP2 or TP3, because without those spots, this will not work, unfortunately. So from here, if you want to, you could like tape it down in perfect place with some Kapton tape. I'm just going to line this up as best as I can, focusing on this hole right here to line it up, and then looking down here. All of this seems pretty lined up to me. Oh, and I'm twisting it. That's not good. Okay, I'm going to hold this down, and I'm just going to tap that down. Look at that. It's fairly locked in. I can get my tweezers out, and I'm going to heat this pad up. I'm going to use some flux since it's being a little annoying. And I got a little bit of solder on this pad. That's all right. I'm going to leave it as is. I'm not going to try and like fix it. I'm not going to try and remove it because it won't fully get removed. I'm going to put some more flux down here, and we'll focus on connecting TP3 real quick. And then I'm going to up my iron to 330 so I can try and get the heat passed through to down here and see if we can connect the ground pad and flatten out this area, because I did put too much solder on that square initially. So now that we're up to 330, for some strange reason, this just doesn't want to reflow. So I'm going to reflow it underneath. Then I'm going to lift up, try and hit it again. Okay, that's not working. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to take some desolder wick. I'm going to lift this up, and I'm going to remove a bunch of the solder that is underneath there. Try and flatten this out a little bit. And then I'm going to clean my iron tip because it's getting a little dirty. And then I'm going to heat this up again. And I'm just going to add some solder. And before I release, I'm going to hold it down and lift up. And it's still not connected. So I'm going to try this again. Okay, we're going to add a little bit more solder. And then trying to keep this center. There we go. That is about as clean as I'm going to get it. Unfortunately, I did get a little bit there, but I don't think it's anything to worry about. We've got TP2 and TP3 soldered down. So now what I'm going to do I'm going to turn off my iron. Then I'm going to spray some alcohol on this area. And then we're going to just try and remove all of the flux as best as we can, because we don't want to leave flux where our button presses are going to be. And I'll give it a little finger test. If it's not sticky, doesn't really feel sticky, then we're probably good. And I don't want my fingerprints on there, so I'm just going to wipe it down a little bit more just to give it the best shot at having the most accuracy on our button presses. And then from here, I'm just going to do a time lapse of me modding this thing, because this will be available on my website, retroremaster.com. You can buy this fully pre-modded. This is a V5 kit, and then we'll bring it back to when it's fully done so we can actually test out the button presses and make sure everything actually works. Okay, here we go. Turn that on. We got sound. That's good. And it reads the game. I did have to replace the power switch, and I accidentally ripped the pad. So that's why I spent a lot of extra time modding this one. But it's got a brand new power switch, and it's still totally fine. But A and B, start and select. Beautiful. Right, left, down, up, and R and L. Cool. I was a little worried about R and L. You never know with R and L. They could just be bad. But start and select. Let me zoom in here so you can just tell immediately. Start and select. Start, select. Even the light presses, they work. Start and select are working totally fine now. We can call this guy a success. Thank you, Natalie, for making these. Don't be shocked if you see another one of these videos very soon, because Natalie's not the only one that makes them. There's some Game Boy Color ones from Froggo Customs. This Game Boy might be all yellow, but we're good to go. It's like traffic lights. It says like slow down. But anyways,